to the Between the Pages podcast. Today we are going to do Choices 2. A few weeks ago we went over choices. It wasn't a 1 because there was only 1. And then we got a lot of good response from it and feedback, and so we have another point of choices 2.
Yeah, when we did choices 1, the one about the lemons and sowing and reaping and harvest, and that, it was way unexpected that we would have the response that we received. It was like, wow.
I think it's our most watched video.
Yeah, it's tens of thousands of people watched it and provided absolutely good feedback on it, and so. We had an experience recently, Sarah and I. We went to a financial presentation at a church, community church, and it was okay.
The basis of it was that if you have a business and you're a Christian, we're going to show you how to build your business in a Christian atmosphere. To make sure. And so it seemed good.
Yeah, it was a good concept, and not taking anything away from it. I mean, it's probably what most Christians think and believe. So it's probably not anything wrong with that, and so not here to judge any of that in any way. But what I don't think most people realize is there's just actually 2 systems out there, and so what we want to do today is we put together a little PowerPoint, and I'm going to step through some of that PowerPoint to share with you, the 2 systems. So we're going to share screen here, and
getting better at this as the days
getting better at it. Yeah, we're
is this one?
Yeah, that's the one, and voila! And I think that's it. Yeah. So give me the toy.
You want me to do the layout like we did for choices?
Well, you can do that in editing, right?
Okay. There you go.
Okay, so the 2 systems.
So we have.
The answers over here. Okay, so basically you have 2 systems, and it's not so much. I don't think it's clear to people that there are 2 systems. And so
I've only ever heard one other person talk about the 2 systems aside from you.
Oh, really?
Out in the world. I've only ever heard one person say something. I was like, oh, wow. Look at you.
Well, I think, a lot of people right now, especially in the financial climate we're in, I think people are struggling. And I'm not so sure they realize why they're struggling.
Yeah.
And so this presentation is hopefully something that's going to help them come to terms with that. And at least it's better if you understand why something's happened to you.
Then you can make adjustments to fix it.
Yeah, then you can change course or not.
Yeah.
If you're happy with what you're doing and that kind of thing. But one of the most valuable commodity that you have is time. Of all the things that you have, time is the most valuable. You may think, oh no, my portfolio is valuable, my home, my car, people, and then it's not to say that those things aren't valuable, but the most valuable thing is time. And so a lot of people spend their time in pursuits that don't produce anything. They're not productive. Okay, at least like in our example, when we plant a tomato seed, a tomato plant comes up, and we reap the harvest of bountiful harvest, hopefully, of tomatoes, and more than what we planted. And so there's no real benefit to, and this is just an example. What's the benefit of a video game? When I was growing up, they had these things called arcades, and you would go there and you'd put a quarter in there in the arcade or the jukebox, the pinball machines or whatever, and you'd play, and then the time would run out and your quarter would be gone. And what do you get to do? You get to log the fact that you was high scorer or something, or try again or whatever, but you didn't do anything productive. You didn't do anything to help yourself move forward. And so it's not that you have time. You have time just like everyone else has. It's like, well, how are you spending your time?
Yeah.
That's the question you should be asking yourself, and that probably was going to lead you back to why you're in the situation you're in. And so what you should be basically doing is asking yourself, if I keep doing what I'm doing, and only you can answer this question because I can't answer it for you, is in 5 years, am I going to be, is my situation going to be any different than it is now?
Yeah.
I mean, if I keep doing what I'm doing now, the general answer would be, no, you're going to be just like you are now. And so the only way, if you're not happy about or content or whatever with your lot currently, and you want to have something different, well, you might want to think about doing something different. Yeah. And so then the question becomes, well, what is it that I want to do? Now, if you're content with where you are and what you're doing, then, stop the video, go do something else, okay? Because this isn't for you. You're already okay, okay? But, if you're kind of curious about, what I'm going to say, then you might want to stick around just so you can have the other point of view, right? The other perspective on this. And that's not to say that my perspective is the only perspective, but what I'm going to show you is interesting, to say the least. At least it is to me. So, without further ado, we'll go ahead and move along. The big reveal. Open the door. Okay, so this is our agenda. And so we always like to start out with a Bible scripture or something, but, we did the introduction, you got to ask, this lantern that comes from Mabel and Abel are praying in the barn. They're, raising their voices up to God.
And you show the little innuendos into the books.
Yeah. Yeah, well, so the thing is that you have to ask, and ask, seek, knock, and so I said, well, ask, seek, find, and then we'll have a kind of a summary towards the end. But I took this scripture out of the Bible, Matthew chapter 7, 7 through 11, I think, and when I found it, I was like, oh, 7-Eleven. I wonder if that's where the convenience store chain came from. But it's like. You need to inquire. If you don't inquire with God, then what you're going to do is you're going to do what the world does most probably. And so that's why I say, that's why I like this template, if you will, is showing the wood being cut. It's gonna cut this piece of wood into 2 pieces. And so you're going to have a choice. You can go with the world, or you can go with a more biblical view of the 2 systems. And so I just say, looking at this, read the fine print. There's a chart here, there's a scripture here. Read what it says, internalize what it says, and let that be what helps you make your decision. Don't listen. Just say, oh, Jimmy Bright said this. No. Go check it out for yourself, okay? So, by way of introduction, I am not a financial advisor, okay? And I am not giving you financial advice. And I don't know why I felt, compelled to put this in here because,
This is just us talking, and you guys are listening.
I'm explaining to you the 2 systems from a biblical point of view.
Yeah.
And so you can take it for what it's worth, okay? And some people may think it's not worth anything, and so others will. But as we mentioned, we had a recent church experience. I went to a church.
That's what it was.
Yeah. It was at a church.
It was at a church, and it was Christians talking about money, basically.
Money and making money and earning money or whatever.
Even though they tried to make it like Bible studies and things, all of the topics were how to, grow.
Yeah. And, there's the techniques and the methods that they use, they probably work. I don't know. I don't know any of the people. I don't know their lives. I don't know anything. I saw them on a stage at a presentation.
Yeah.
And so I'm not judging any of that. But what I'm saying is okay, there's 2 views here. There's a world view and there's a God view. And so you might want to think about, well, why am I not doing as well as, well, we'll just say the Joneses, for instance, Yeah. People always comparing themselves to someone else. Oh, I could be doing like they're doing. I could be like them. Well, most of the people that you think are rich, they're just like you.
Yeah.
They're just what I call broke at a higher level. Okay, you're not doing well. They're not doing well either. And what they're in is a system that's a debt-based system that manages to make it so that they can afford their lifestyle. And I remember there was a commercial several years ago about a guy riding around on a lawnmower in his yard, just smiling and happy. I'm broke. I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. Kind of thing. So, and I was like, okay, yeah. And that's where most people are. They're just in a debt-based system makes a slave out of you. And the only people who can free people from slavery are people who are free. Free people who are in bondage. If you're a slave to credit cards or a slave to debt, then you're never going to be free. You're going to need someone else to help you get free. And I know that's kind of a hard thing to understand, but if you're a slave to credit cards and debt, and you think that somehow or another you're going to be able to work it out yourself, you're probably wrong about that. I remember walking to the grocery store on a path one day, and that's what a job is. A job is a situation where you're just over broke. The people that you're working for, and there's nothing wrong with jobs. Jobs are a good thing. You need a job. You need to provide for your family. I'm not saying jobs are bad. I'm just saying the people who you work for and with, they're just going to pay you enough to keep you coming back. Because if they paid you what you were worth, you'd never come back. You'd work 30 minutes and you'd be done for life, because in God's eyes, your value is, well, He sent His Son to die on the cross for you. That's how valuable you are to Him. And that's a pretty big price. And so, but jobs don't pay at that level, okay? And so when I was walking, a job is like a path. I was walking to the grocery store as a kid one day, and the same old path, and so many people would walk that path. You just walk across the street and walk to I think it was a food town or something like that. And you'd walk across the street, go in the store, get your groceries, come back, and you walk back on the same path. And there was grass on either side of the path, and then there was this dirt path, And I looked down, and there was a $20 bill laying on the ground. I'm like, wow. And I looked around, there was nobody there. So somebody had dropped it at some point, and they weren't looking for it. And so I took it home. Mom was glad to get it. But the thing is when I found that $20 bill, it's like I didn't realize what that was. And what a $20 bill is, it's just a portion of a person's life. They took their time at a job or some other endeavor to earn $20. And that was their time that was stored up in that $20 bill. And then they choose to take that $20 bill and exchange it for goods, services, or whatever. But that, in a sense, is where most people are. They're taking their time and they're exchanging their time for dollars. And, that's the system. That's what we currently have. And that's the system that you get to live with. So if you're happy with that system, like I say, just turn this off and stop watching. If you want to know more, hang around.
It doesn't want us to keep going. Well, there's some thing up, some blue thing. Hide. There we
go. Okay. We overcome that little difficulty. Okay, so what you have to be willing to do is to ask. Okay? So, why am I here? It's the eternal question. Probably been
Why are you here?
Why are you here?
You ended up on this YouTube channel for a reason.
I'm here today for whatever reason. I'm here. I had an experience at a church, and now I thought I might want to talk about it. But what I have found is most people don't plan to fail. They just fail to plan. And someone else said this before me, and I don't know who to give credit to, but I'm sure there's some other person out there that's like, that's my quote. And to that person, say Luke. But you just don't plan.
Yeah.
And,
And then it's like also planning and never needing to use your plan is like, it's a good thing.
Here you are stuck in the system you're in and getting the results you're getting, but you don't understand why.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to change course. Okay, so what am I doing wrong? Well, there are basically two systems, and two paths, if you will. And so I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. But if you're not happy where you are, then perhaps maybe you are doing something wrong. That's all I'm saying. And so if you're asking yourself those kinds of questions, then, how do I change? You need to ask. You need to seek. You need to knock. You need to go out and you need to go take a real introverted type look at yourself and where you are and the situation you're in. And, that's the thing with one of the aspects of this is Kismet. And that was what we...
Which is one of the new books coming
out. New books. It'll be out like December. It's ready. Yeah. It's, real close. But we thought we'd take this time to introduce you, pull the curtain back, meet Kate and Buck. This is them. They're out there. They're just a couple kids, happy-go-lucky. They're out there on the train track, and there's a train coming up, and they're just oblivious to it. And I think that's the way most people live their lives. They're just completely oblivious to this financial situation that they're in, and don't realize there's some event coming, and I don't know what that event is, but I know this: it's not anything that's unusual. It happens to everyone. Yeah. Something happens. You're gonna need time, money, friends. Well, I made that so that it would go like a clock. The average lifespan is 4,000 weeks. For some people, it's a little more than that, and for some people, it's a little less than that. Okay? So, what you got to think about is, where am I in the 4,000 week event? Fortunately today we have calculators, so what you do is you just take the number of years you've been alive and multiply it by 52, because that's the number of weeks in a year. And so it'll tell you, and then you can subtract, I have X number of weeks left, because there are no do-overs. There's no going back, and the weeks that you've already spent, they're spent. And you've got the results. You're living those results right now. You're living you're reaping the harvest of the previous weeks that you've spent.
Choices too.
Yeah. So this is choices. You're making a choice. And so, ask yourself? What are you doing with your time? And is it time well spent? Most of the people who are in a better situation than you are have only spent their time doing something different than what you're doing. They've spent their time being productive. Okay? And so you've got two results from that. You're going to build up treasure on earth and treasure in heaven. And regardless of what your belief system is, you're going to give an account for both of those. You're going to give an account for the treasure that you've built here and what you did with it, and you're going to, depending on what you did with it, you're going to build up treasure in earth, and you're going to give an account for that. And some of the treasure that you generate in heaven will be gold, silver, precious jewels, and the other of it will be hay, wood, and stubble. And so, but either way, that's what's going to happen. So, These two here in the transition, they buck. Made me think about, well, he just kicks up his heels. They're just like, they don't care. And so time just flies away. I love that little origami thing where it flies away. Your time's just flying away. Time's flying away right now. Just clicking off.
Yeah.
Okay, and so, but here's, basically you're trading, what money is you're trading your hours for dollars. And in this particular case, I said, well, okay, I'll just look at, the different denominations, and, a penny consists of 0.75 cents, but it takes 4 cents to make it. Well, that's a loss on your investment. I don't know how the government continues to print pennies. But if you look at the commodities that are in them, they're reasonable, but the amount of time and effort it takes to make them is not. And I understand there's a lot of things associated with pennies, and the fact that, if you didn't have pennies, it'd probably round up, and that would affect people who are in the lower system economically adversely. The same thing happens with nickels. 11 cents is what the material cost, and that's well above the face value of the nickel, and so forth. And so, fortunately, the government makes it up on dimes and quarters. But this is what it is today. By this time next year, the way inflation's going, these numbers will be totally different. So that's why we put the data down in the bottom left-hand corner, 2025. So moving forward, okay. So you have a fear and greed system versus a tried and true system. Okay, so I think everybody's pretty much familiar with the fear and greed system. The stock market, that's the way it works. You got your money in stocks, more power to you. If you're happy with that, I personally never owned any stock, ever. And I never even had a 401k up until this last job I got, and they signed me up involuntarily. And so I've never owned a 401k, I've never owned stock. And the reason why is because I don't really trust anyone other than me with my money. But, you're different. And so what they've done is they've done a pretty good job of convincing you that the Babylonian system works better than the Abrahamic system. And I'm here to prove that incorrect. Okay, and now how I'm going to do it is I'm going to take a simple example of wages. Okay, and I fortunately had my granddaughter was here visiting, and she was able to help me with this. She loves this kind of stuff. So, wages, 1964. Now, some of you guys may recognize this, and some of you may not, but the minimum wage in 1964 was $1.25 an hour. I went and looked it up, and this is what it told me. So I'm thinking, I wasn't working in 1964. I was 6 years old. And so, but the equivalent wage today, and this is probably 2023 or 2024 number, would be like $10.50. And so that just tells you about the comparison. If you're working for hourly wage, which most people are, then you should be making at least $10.50. But is that the true story? Is that the true thing? I can remember, I liked Andy Griffith's show, and I used to watch it. And the thing is there's this episode in there, Mr. McBeevy, and it's by far, Pickles episode #1 with me. I don't know how the rest of you are. I love that one. But the second favorite was Mr. McBeevy. And the reason I like Mr. McBeevy is, Opie has a kind of an overactive imagination. I suppose that's where I get it from, and that's why I'm able to write these books.
Oh, yeah.
But OAI. And so, Mr. McBeevy gives him a quarter for helping him out. He brought him water, brought him berries for him to eat and that kind of stuff. And so he gives him a quarter, and he gives him a nice shiny quarter. And that quarter is 90% silver. Now, Opie is all over it about that quarter, because back then a quarter would actually buy something. Okay? A quarter, if you're paying your kid to do chores and you're giving them a quarter for that, then what you should actually do is, for the work they're doing, give them a $10 bill. because that 1964 quarter, based on the silver content, is worth $10. Just on the silver content alone, not counting the fact that it might actually have some other type of value. Okay? And so that's what we want to hope to demonstrate. The other thing that I really love about Mr. McBeevy is Andy. He's the father figure in the story. And Opie's telling him this story about Mr. McBeevy with all these hands, and he jingles, and he has a shiny hat, and all this kind of stuff. And you know, Andy's ready to, you know, discipline him, you know. But he doesn't, because he believes in the son more than he does in what the son's telling him. Even though he can't see what the son is telling him, he believes in what the son is telling him. And a parallel between, we all have a father, he has a son, and there's a spirit, and we can't see that spirit, and we believe in that spirit as, wow, great show. So, I don't want to get too choked up about it. Those silver quarters in the second picture, you can see they're all silver. At the end of the day, now, 5 silver quarters at 90% silver is about 1 point something ounces of silver. As of the video that we're currently filming, an ounce of silver is going for about $52 an ounce. So that means those 5 quarters there are worth $52. So if your hourly wage isn't $52 an hour, somebody's ripping you off. Because back in the day, when somebody worked for $1.25, they got an ounce of silver, they had real purchasing power. So that $10.50 an hour wage, this is why you can't get ahead. Your purchasing ability has been lowered. Now, that's $52 for 1 hour. By the end of the day, you would have had 8 of those stacks. And so what I did is I put together 8 stacks. Some of them are $half, some of them are dimes, some of them are quarters, that kind of thing. And that pile that you see over there to the right is a single day's wages in silver, which is what you used to get paid in 1964. I can't remember the last time I got a paycheck that was either mailed to my house or whatever. I can't remember, you know, getting paid in silver. I can't, but when you were fired, or the more political term these days is laid off or something of that nature, then you would go to the cashier window and they would pay you your wages right there at the window and send you on your way. And they would pay you in dollars, which were usually silver certificates or gold certificates, and they would pay you in coinage, which was usually silver. Okay, so dollars, $half have silver content, dimes have silver content, quarters have silver content. Even like 1942, 43, 44, nickels have silver content, 35% silver. And so they stopped making those during the war. But the point of all this is those were real wages. Okay? And so that's a single day. This is your week. Meet my model. Say hi to Jimmy Bright, okay? Day 1, my quality assurance evaluator, she loves silver. She loves the sound of it. She loves the feel of it. So I got her to model this for me. So she put a single day's wages in her hands. And during the book in Kismet, you know, they realize that time is money and it's going by. And the book shows them in God's hands just like this. And this is why I chose this pose, is to show you, you know, you're in God's hands. You know, you're not in someone else's hands. If you're a Christian, He sees you. He knows what you're worth, and He knows what you should be paying paid, but you choose to get something different. So day 1, day 2, day 3. If you see the progression there, now the interesting little part of this is there's 6 days there, y'all, and the reason there's 6 days there is 6 days thou shalt work. Okay, and so I have always worked 6 days. Ever since I became a Christian, I work 6 days. I don't work 4 days. If you're going to work 4 days, if you're a proponent of the 4-day work week, you might want to stop watching this now, because you're just cutting your wages, and on top of that, you're like not keeping the instruction. Okay, so a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. The 7th day is a day of rest. Well, I figure you owe somebody $240 because there's $240 for the week. I mean, $2,400 for the week. A tithe, which is the accepted thing, is 10%. I actually think a tithe is more like 25%, so I think a fourth of it ought to be going to kingdom pursuits. Whether that's your church or missionary work or giving money to the Goodwill or the food pantry or whatever your thing is. I mean, I'm not here to dictate any of that. That's about, a fourth of your income should go to that. I know people who give 90% of their income to God, so more power to them. I'm not at that level, but I do give a lot of money away, as you're going to find out here later. But that leaves you $2,160 to pay your debts with for the week. You wonder why you can't afford a nice car? You wonder why you can't have a house? You wonder why your kids don't get the best education? You wonder why this, that, or the other? There it is right there. If you're making $2,160 a week, now, other little part of that is there's Sam. He wants his share of your $2,160. But assuming he takes a third of it, you're still going to have $1,400 a week left for groceries, medical, education, home, energy. For the week, usually there's 4 weeks in a month. That means you're going to be making somewhere in the neighborhood of about $6,000 to $7,000 a month. After taxes and after God. Or maybe not in that order, but that's the way they do it. I say after God, after taxes. But whatever. So that's what you're looking at. That's my model, okay? So, you got to have a plan. Like we talked about earlier, why are you where you are? You don't have a plan. You didn't plan to fail. You just failed to plan. And so, you got to have a plan. Okay, so if you're going to have a plan, well, what's it going to be? Well, the first thing I think you should do is you should get an education. If you want to break the cycle of poverty, hopefully you're getting an education out of this. If you want to break the cycle of poverty and get on the path to prosperity, and that's what Kate and Buck do. They repent of what they're doing, the gambling, their addiction. They get on a different path, and they get on the path, and it's actual path that leads, to prosperity, and has the words prosperity on it. That's how you break the cycle of poverty. Kate and Buck, they gamble away all their money, they fritter away all their time, and they wind up poor, broken down car, busted up furniture. I know this life because I lived it. I was a project kid. I lived in the projects in Huntsville, so I know poverty. So it's not like I'm sitting here talking to you about something I don't know about. And the only way that I got out of that was getting an education. Okay, and getting an education really wasn't that easy a thing to do because we was broke. All right, and so the thing is I had to find other ways to solve that, and I'll explain some of that later. But okay, so then you get that. Well, once you have the education, your possibilities are limitless. It's going to open doors. You're going to be able to do things. You're going to be able to go places. You're going to be a whole lot better off than the people who don't have an education. So spend your time reading, pursuing an education, and in that way you'll have options, okay? And so then once you have options, well, what's the goal? I mean, you could have all the money in the world, but what profit the man that, have the whole world and lose his own soul? What's the goal? What do you plan to do? The thing is you got to have some goals. They got to be measurable. Like I want to do such and this and that and the other within a certain amount of time. Or, I want to do this or I want to do that. The thing about it is goals are beneficial. If your goal is to go on vacation, right, and live and go to Cincinnati, we'll just pick that place, and nothing against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a great place. But I don't know how to get there from here. That's why I had to get a map. I had to get a map out, and, I got to get how to get to Cincinnati. Oh, there's a highway. Okay, I get on the highway. Well, I get to Cincinnati, then what I'll do? I got to have a place to stay, so I have to do that. Then, I got to eat. I got to, so there's, those are goals. Whether you like it or not. And so the thing is if I take and head out, say it says, jump on I-81 and go north, and I go out here and I make a wrong turn and I start heading towards Virginia. Well, I'm like, man, I've been driving a while. I'm not getting to Cincinnati. What's up? I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going the wrong direction. Know when to quit. If you got a goal that isn't getting you where you're going, you can keep on beating on that goal if you want to for the rest of your life. Just go at it, man, and knock yourself out, but you're not going to get where you want to go. And you're not going to, so just, there's nothing wrong with changing your goals. There's nothing wrong with doing something different, okay? And so then, what are you going to do? You achieve your goals. You now have unlimited prosperity. Well, what are you going to do? You going to put it all in the bank and get a warm fuzzy or whatever, or what? I got so much money or whatever. No, you got to do something. You got to, and so you want to donate. You want to give back. You want to help people who were in the situation you were in get an education and become prospering members of the community. If you're not willing to do that, then it's all just you're just doing it for yourself. So you got to learn to be that, have gratitude, if you will, like we talked about earlier. Have gratitude for what's been done for you and be willing to share that with other people to help them. Whether you believe it or not, you and your job is a ministry. You're an example as a Christian to the other people that you work with on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. They see you and they see that you're a Christian. And when you leave work at the end of the day and you go out and get some beat up jalopy that smoke's coming out or burning oil out the back of it or whatever, they're going, I don't want to live like that. But if they see something different, they see someone who's confident, and they see someone who's helping, active in their community, and so on and so forth, then they're going to want to be like you, okay? And so in your job, do the best job you can do. Whatever it is they give you to do it. And if someone offers you an opportunity to do work, take it. You'll be surprised what you learn. And I've learned a lot. I've done a lot of different things. My first job was washing dishes at age 12. And so I'm in my 6th decade of work, and I've never been without work because I'm always willing to say, okay, and I've learned some work I don't want to do, and some work I didn't think I got compensated fairly for it, and, whatever, but I found other work, okay, so that's what you need to do. And so, to me, that's a goal, is to teach other people, do a ministry, work. I tell my boss all the time, I do the best job I can do, not for me, for you. I do it for my boss. I do it for her because I want her to look good in front of her boss. Okay? And so that's the way you need to approach work. Not that you're doing the best job. There's some satisfaction in doing a good job. I mean, period. You should want to feel confident that you did the best you could do today. But your reason should be outside of yourself. And so if you have money, you can pay your debts. A lot of people can't pay their debts. And then you can save money, which is an important thing to be able to do. You need to be able to save for your future. And so in doing this, you wind up with options, right? You wind up what you're currently doing, which I can pretty much, I bet 90% of folk out there can check that Babylonian system box. That's the system you're in. And it's not your fault. It's just that's the system we're in, and then you got to learn to work within that system. Or you can work with something different. You can work in the Abrahamic system. Okay, and so there are a couple of takeaways here. Time, you got 4,000 weeks on average, and you're not going to get any more than that. I mean, a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but that's it. I mean, that's all there is to it. And more people have lived and walked on this earth than are currently on it right now, and that should tell you something. Okay, I mean, they have lived their lives and they're no longer here. Money, they had the same problems. They had to make a living and whatever, but they saw money as a tool, not as an end. It's something they could use to do something different, to build a bigger barn or better school or a better house or, provide medical care or whatever it was their thing. Money's a tool. It's not the end, okay? And so you want to have that time or the money or the network is what they call it today, friends and family, other people, associates, acquaintances, if you will. You want to have that because those are the three things you're going to need. And so this is just a kind of I could have made 5 or 6 charts out of this. But I thought,
choices 3 and 4 and 5.
Choices 3, 4, and 5. This is heavy. This is deep stuff, man, And so, but you got to, if you want to live different, you got to behave different. So break back the chart, okay? Timeline. I have approximately 500 weeks remaining. That's just to tell you where I am. And in 1970, I got my first job washing dishes. I did a lot of other odd jobs and that kind of thing. And so, graduated high school. I was topping a class of 800 something. I wasn't at the very top, but I was pretty smart. But I had no options. I just go to work. Well, so I joined the United States Air Force. And the reason why I joined the United States Air Force was GI Bill. Because if there was one thing my mother communicated to me that stuck with me is she worked hard. And I'm saying there's probably a lot of y'all that are like this. She worked hard her entire life, down on her knees, scrubbing floors and cleaning toilets, and worked as a short order cook and stuff like that, her whole life. So if hard work was what was going to get you out of what you're in, that ain't going to happen. One of the things she said to me is, she cleaned these office buildings for these people. She said, them college boys, they don't work hard. They don't work hard like me. They sit around the desk, talk on the phone, and do stuff like that. Now I now know that them college boys work hard too. It's just a different kind of hard, and they get paid more for it too. And so the thing is I got the GI Bill, and I was honorably discharged. Okay, so that's something to think about. There was a lot of times during that I was like, I'm quitting. I'm going to just tell them to let me out. And Sergeant Zach Meyer, he told me, Jimmy, he said, you want out? You just just kiss me right here and we'll let you go. And I'm like, no. I put my name on the line. I'm going to stick it out. Okay? And so I got out, went to school, got an education, got a BS in accounting, got a BS in computer science. Made a lot of difference in my life. Okay? I didn't graduate summa cum laude, but I graduated cum laude with honors. And so you can do it. And the reason why I point that out is that I worked a 40-hour week at a place in Huntsville while I was going to school at night and on weekends. Okay. And some of you out there know what I'm talking about. Now, there's others of you out there that, you're in college. Maybe you're fortunate enough to be looking this, and the reason you're there is you have a benefactor, usually called PARENT or PARENTS. And they're the ones who are providing your way and whatnot, and you're not having to work for it, which is fine. God bless you. You are a fortunate person, and you should express gratitude with a spirit of thanksgiving when you get together around the holiday table, you come home for a visit. You should express that. I started a family 1990, got 5 kids, 10 plus grandchildren now. You know, I began to work. I got my degree, went to work for a company and what they would call a career. And just for clarification's sake, a career is something like movie stars or people who sing music, or maybe your doctor or your dentist or someone who owns their own business. They have careers. The rest of us have jobs. And as you remember, our earlier definition is just over broke. And so 5 years into that career thing, I began to realize, no, I need to own my own business. And this is one of the reasons I've never signed up for a 401k or own stocks or anything like that. I was always more, I like land, I like trees, I like cattle, I like horses, I like chickens and eggs. I see those as real, that's part of the Abrahamic system, okay, commodities. And an aspect of that is money, gold and silver, precious stones, precious jewels. Those are commodities. Well, I'm wearing that shirt. That label you see there to the right up here, it says 2DC6Z0. And I got that shirt in 2002, and I'm still wearing that shirt today, which is kind of an interesting thing. It still fits, and I still have it. Now, I have a lot of shirts, okay, and I still have them. And what you need to do, if you want to make your money last longer, you need to learn to take care of the things that you have. That way you're not out there just buying the same thing over and over. I see people waste money all the time on the latest clothes, the latest fads. Hey, my nakedness is covered. That's all that the clothing is supposed to be doing, okay? And so, but this particular number, 2DC6C0. Now, back there in 1976 when I joined the Air Force, my mom, she had parted ways with me and showed me the street, and in 1976, and I reached in my pocket and I pulled out a penny and a nickel. I had the clothes on my back and a penny and a nickel. By this time, '02, which is several decades later, and a lot of experiences and whatnot, that 2DC6C0 number, if you put that in a hex calculator, it comes out. And I used to wear the shirt to work, and the guy's like, what is that? I said, that's my number. He said, that's a mighty big number. It is $3 million. I hit a net worth of $3 million in 8/9/02. And it's only gotten better since then. So I'm not saying my life is anything you want to pattern your life after, but you know, if it's working for you, you're already there, knock yourself out. What I want to do is I want to try to show you a way that you can do it without doing the Babylonian thing. Do the Abrahamic thing, and you'll be more content with your lot in life, and you'll build real wealth in your life. Okay? So I threw this in here because JG, he's our next book that's coming out, and you know, he right now is the season of autumn here, fall as some people know it, and it's a wonderful season. And like I say, it's one of my favorite seasons. And one of the things you want to do when you reach the season of autumn in your life is you don't want to have any regrets. I mean, if you do have regrets, you want to have a few of them, not a lot. And that's what he's doing. He's reading this book by Siva Elder. She's a fictional character we made up called Red Leaves. And Red Leaves by Siva Elder is red leaves backwards. So if you're trying to figure that out, that's what that is. But he's young in his life, And this is when he's deciding, I want to do something positive with my life. And so he dedicates himself to the mission field, and he becomes a selfless servant. Okay, but I picked this in the stack of money, that silver coinage. I picked this particular one out. It's 1929. And a lot of people associate that 1929 with the date, the financial collapse and crisis. And this was back when there was real money, not like what today is. So you can pretty much bet the next financial crisis is going to be unlike anything that's ever been seen. And when you're sitting around the Thanksgiving table, I know that this is the prescribed cultural, Babylonian system mantra, if you will. Oh, we don't talk about religion. We don't talk about politics. Well, okay, don't talk about religion and don't talk about politics, because you're not going to probably get anywhere. The religious system is probably part of the problem, and the political system definitely is part of the problem. But the third horse is the black horse. It's the financial system. And if you're not going to talk about religion and politics, you surely aren't going to talk about money, but you ought to be talking about money. You ought to be talking about all three of those. And so that way you're at least aware of what's happening when it happens. And so many people are like, what happened? Then my granddaughter used to do it all the time. What happened? And there's a lot of people growing up doing the same thing.
Moved on from that.
Yeah.
She used to say that all the time.
But aside from the fact that I picked this quarter out because it's a beautiful design, you think about the history of this quarter. It saw the Depression. It saw World War II. That in itself was quite a thing. It saw Israel become a nation. It saw Korea. It saw Vietnam. It saw 20% interest rates in the 70s and 80s. It saw the fall of the Berlin Wall. It saw the Gulf conflicts. It saw the Twin Towers. Oh, Pearl Harbor was in there too, right, y'all? For all the old people. And it saw the financial crisis, 2008, and it's still here. And it's going on 100 years old.
Yeah, I was going to say it only got a few years left.
A few more years and it'll be 100 years old. And it's real money. Now, think about this quarter. Think how many people worked for this quarter. I mean, think of the number of hands. This quarter did not discriminate. It probably been in every race known to man at one point in time. Male, female, child, adult, old, young, everything. This quarter, they worked for it. They traded their time for this quarter so that they could take a vacation or buy groceries or pay the utility bill.
You traded your time for it.
What's that?
You traded your time for it.
I traded my time for it. I did. I traded my time for it. And now it's in my possession. But you know what? This is one of the things I never could figure out about the real estate business, how you could own land. I don't know how you can do that. Because you don't own land. The land owns you. From the dust of the earth, you were created. And to the dust of the earth, you will return. The land owns you. And if you think you're not going to be returning to it, more power to you. Because that's exactly where your body's going to go. Back to the land that it came from. And so you can't own the land. It owns you. Okay? So you think about what is it that you want to leave behind? What legacy do you want to leave? Because that's exactly what you're going to be doing someday, is leaving it all behind. Okay? And so this quarter was worth a lot in 1929. It was worth a lot in 1960. It's worth a lot in 2025. Now, this probably doesn't contain as much silver as it used to because it's worn down. But we'll just go with it's 90% silver. It's worth $52 today. Oh no, it's worth a tenth of $52 because we had 5 quarters. Oops. And so it's worth at least $10 and something. Okay? So the question is, what do you want to do with your time? Where do you want to focus at? Do you want to have something that has real value, that has real worth? Well, the Abrahamic system offers you that. And so the next question you're going to want to attempt to be asking yourself is, okay, what do we do now? Okay? So, what do we do now? How do we get there? It's never too late. Never too late. And so I like the one that I use for the 4,000 weeks. I use that animation, like the sweeping clock. The clock's going by. Now's the time. Time is your most valuable commodity. All you have to do is ask. It'll be revealed to you, and then you can implement the plan. Okay? Then, as you're going along, take an assessment, look around. Who do you know that's doing what you're doing? How they doing? Compared to who? Okay? All right? If you're going to compare yourself to everybody else on your block, okay, that's fine. Then you're probably okay with where you are. You might just stop there. You don't have to go. Oh, and, there's a sales pitch with this, right? There's always a sales pitch. You guys, you're always trying to pitch some kind of, program. And that's what these people, this community church I went to. I mean, they had a thing for how you're going to make money in real estate. They had how you're going to make money doing this. And it was a sales pitch. I got a sales pitch for you, y'all. You want to spend some time reading. Reading what? Read your Bible. That's a hard sale these days. I mean, I don't have many takers on that one. But everything that I'm talking about is in that book. It's already there. It's already laid out. And most people think that money's an evil thing, but it's the love of money that's an evil thing. And the Bible, I mean, it's 1/3 money is what it's talking about. It's talking about all these prosperity, lands, herds, flocks, silver, gold, tithing, offerings, all the things that are money related. The Bible's talking about that and how you should live your life. And that's part of the Abrahamic system. Okay? I didn't have a whole lot of notes on this, so we'll move on. Okay, so we're coming up close to the end, y'all, so it's almost over. You don't have to bear with me much longer, assuming you're still here. But don't fake yourself out. I threw this 1 Corinthians in there, 3:16-18. I like the 3:16 verses in the Bible. If you ever want to have some fun, start in Genesis. Read Genesis 3:16. Move to the next Exodus 3:16. Read all the three, because you'll come to John, your favorite, right? 3:16. For God so loved the world. But there are a lot of other verses that are 3:16 verses that are really good. And we probably do a study on that. But this particular one says you can keep yourself clean. If you pollute yourself with the world view, your temple's going to be confused. You're not going to know where to go, how to turn, whatever, and you're going to wind up in a situation you don't understand. And, after you've gone through it, you might be able to look back, 20/20, hindsight kind of thing, go, oh, that's why I wound up where I was at. And so my thing is don't be thinking, oh, what I'll do is I'll just go run out here to the internet and consult it. If I was you, I would find the oldest, least successful person you know. That might be someone in your family. That might be someone you work with. That might be someone, your neighbor. I don't know. Find that person and ask them, if you had a do-over, what would you do? Okay, would you do anything different? If you had a do-over, what would you do? That is probably some of whatever they tell you. I mean, aside from the fact of, oh, I love the situation I'm in, I wouldn't do anything different. If you hear that, then find somebody else. But if they're going to offer you, well, if I had it to do over young whippersnapper, I'd get an education. I would have got an education. I would have got a better education. Yeah, these are the words you're going to hear. And these are the words you're hearing from me. And so, my thing is, don't take my word for it. I keep telling you, don't take my word for it. Find someone else you respect and ask them. But in lieu of that, if you can't, there's a Jane, our trumpet train lady. We wrote a new book about her. It's called Hear Hear. And you got to be willing to listen. And that's one of the themes that she said. She got her hand up to her ear. She's like, listen, hear, O Israel. And you got to be willing to listen, okay? And if you're not a listening person, then you're basically not a teachable person, okay? Because, whatever. But what I have found is that I don't have to be a good instructor. All I have to do is wait for the student to appear. Because sooner or later, one of them will come knocking on my door, and they do. Okay? And so they want to know. They want to know what the deal is. And I'm going to share something with you that you can do for yourself. I knew a girl. We'll call her, since we have donkeys, I'll call her Jenny. Jennies are female donkeys. So I would just say Jenny. And, I was talking to her about this very same thing back in 1994, 1995. And, she's like, well, I don't know if I want to do that. And I'm like, okay, well, all right, well. And basically what I was talking about is you just buy yourself an ounce of gold every month. The gold was like $180, $200 an ounce, whatever. If you can't afford that, well, then don't buy an ounce of gold. Buy an ounce of silver. Silver was probably trading somewhere around $3. But, invest in yourself. Invest in precious stones, precious metals, commodities, eggs. I know a guy who owns an oil well. For crying out loud. He owns an oil, and every day he pumps like 8 barrels of oil at $70 a barrel, I think is what it's going for right now. So, that's $560 a day. I have a low producing oil well. Commodities, you'll do a lot better. And the well runs and he does something else, which is really nice. So you want to have things that are going to do things for you. When you're trading hours for dollars, at the end of the week you get your paycheck and you don't own anything. The guy that owns the business, he owns the stuff. He owns whatever it was you built, he owns it. She owns it. It's hers. And they just say thank you. And so the reason that is because they got an education and they started the business and they have goals. And guess what? You are a part of their goals. And so I was talking to her about this, and because she was in a JOB, she was admin of some type or something. And she said, well, I'll go home and pray about it, and I'll cast a fleece. And so this is biblical. You can go look it up and go cast a fleece. And she said, well, she cast a fleece, and she said, in the morning, Lord, if there's frost on the ground and no frost on the fleece, then I know that this is the right thing to do. And she came back and she told me, I said, well, what happened? She said, yeah, I woke up in the morning and there was frost on the ground and there was none on the fleece. And I'm like, Jenny, well, that's great. When do you want to get started? When do you want to start doing this? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, well, okay, well, I'm going to pray about it some more. So she goes home, she goes, throws the fleece out that night. This is a true story. It's a true story. Throws the fleece out that night. Says, Lord, if this is something I'm supposed to do, let there be frost on the fleece and none on the ground. So she thought, man, the night before, this is the way it was. I'll get what I want. Woke up next morning, went out there, frost on the fleece, none on the ground. Now, oh, my, well, so she comes back. I said, well, how'd it go? She goes, Jimmy, she said, I went home and I reversed it. I asked for frost on the fleece and no frost on the ground, and guess what? I'm like, what? She said, there was frost on the fleece and there was none on the ground. I'm like, well, great, when do you want to get started? She's like, I don't know, I need to think about this. And, to my knowledge, she's still thinking about it. But you know what? I'm not. I took what happened to her and I said, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And you guys, you can do whatever you want. And go cast your fleece. Go out there, test the water. Find somebody and ask them. Somebody who's successful. Go. If you ever can get a chance to talk to Bezos or anyone, Musk, anybody that's way up the chain, you're sitting there, you're running out there, you're going to some concert by some girl, we won't even mention her, and you're spending your money on that. You know what? She goes wherever she wants. She doesn't work. And Monday morning comes, and what do? Back to work, just over broke. You took your hard-earned money that you spent your most valuable asset, and you gave it to her. And she's rich, so rich, and you're not. Why do you do that? I don't know. And so that's the question. So if she had, the average price of gold since the time I was talking to her was about $1,200 an ounce per month. That was about 35 years ago when I was talking to her. Okay, and so that's 12 months. That's 35 years. That's 420 ounces of gold. She would have spent $540,000. That sounds like a lot of money. But that gold in the Friday close, which was around $4,200 an ounce, would be worth $1,764,000. Now, if you took away the $540 she spent to get that, that'd be a profit or net of $1,224,000. And that's from doing nothing. Taking your money, buying an ounce of gold, putting it in a safety deposit box or a vault somewhere, and going about your business. You're not sitting there having to day trade where you like watching this stock. Oh, when do I sell? When do I buy? That's the concept they presented in this church thing. You know, I don't know. You don't have to do anything. Just sit there. Go do what you want to do. And 35 years later, I don't know where your position is. We'll just say you're 40. You'll be 75. Time to cash out. Take it down there and cash it in. You'll have to pay some kind of gain or something. But the same thing's going to happen on those stocks. You're going to pay gains on those. Can't get away. Give unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. And so, you know, if you noticed back early in the presentation, when we had the Sabbath day and the coin in the fish's mouth, that's what that's about. You know, they were asking Jesus, Yeshua and them, they didn't pay their taxes. And he said, well, go get this fish out of the lake over there. He goes over and gets a fish out of the lake and bring it up, and there's a gold coin. And he said, here, take that and give it to Caesar. Give his taxes to him. You know, God will provide. You'll be able to pay your taxes. You'll be able to do whatever you need to do. Plus, you'll be able to do everything else you need to do. That's the Abrahamic system. Okay? If you're putting money into asset up on Wall and Broad, I just ask you a question. Who is your financial advisor? Who manages your money in your 401k? Give me their name. Do you know their name? I bet out of 100 people, maybe 2 know their name. What's the fee structure? You want to know why you don't have any money in your 401k? You may have some money in there, but you don't have everything you should have because of fees. Warren Buffett says, look, find yourself a low-fee instrument if you're going to invest. And Warren Buffett, I mean, he's a stock guru. The thing about stocks is, well, okay, what do you know about those companies? Do they have the same Christian values that you have? If you buy stock in, you know, some company out there, well, do they believe in, you know, the same Christian values that you have? Whatever those are. Like marriage, just for fun, or fornication. How about that one? You know, or, you know, do the ends justify the means? Does that mean thievery is a, you know, okay thing to do? And so the question you should be asking yourself is, if I'm going to buy stock in a company, what do I know about the people who run that company? That's what Warren Buffett says. He says, get to know the managers. Get to know what their values are. Now, he does it from a different point of view, but you should have the same kind of view. If you're going to go that route, then, you know, there are funds out there. I mean, you know, my second oldest son asked me one time, Daddy, he said, you don't own stocks, and stocks are important. I'm like, well, there's the Timothy Fund. It's aligned with godly principles. You jump in there, put your money in there, and they're Christian people. And I'm not endorsing them, okay? I'm not saying that if you do your homework, you can go out there and you can find things that are in line with what your beliefs are. I personally was always more interested in investing in people. And when you go down that route, you are going to be taken advantage of more times than not. But I have invested millions in people all across this world, in countries far and wide, through different activities and different missionary work and different whatnot. You can do the same thing. And I have never, ever lost any money that I have given away. I know that's hard to believe, but I have never. The money I have lost it fell out of my pocket, or I bought something stupid, or, I bought the wrong thing. That's money I've lost, okay? But when you're thinking about losing money and you're in the stock market and the daily greed and fear system, you don't lose money in the stock market. Now, I know there's people out there, Jimmy, you don't know anything. I'm turning off because you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I'm going to tell you this is what happens. Your money goes to someone else. Money is not destroyed. It just transfers hands. The guys at the Federal Reserve and places at the Mint, they bring in all the money that's not fit to be circulated, and they destroy money. They circulate money, but then they turn around and print up something to replace it, so it's not like it really ever goes away. And so if you can print up gold and silver, we'd have a problem, but you can't. It's finite and that kind of thing. So what I'm saying is, you look at this last chart, is I'm thanking you. And you can send me questions and make them nice, I tried that, Jimmy, didn't work for me. Okay, fine. But if you're interested in knowing how to make things work, if you look around, you probably got $50. You can start right now buying 1 ounce of silver every month for the rest of your life, and you'd be okay. Okay? And so the question is, do I want to take the $10.50 in silver that you see there and trade it for, and I had my daughter go to the bank and get me some nickels and some pennies. There's $10 worth of nickels there and 50 cents in pennies. So $10.50 is the current minimum wage. Do you want to trade what you're doing today, the $10.50, today's money, for the pile on the right over there? If you got that pile on the right over there, and I can send you a check for $10.50 or give you coinage like that, and you'll give me that pile on the right over there, I'll take it. Okay? Because a fool and their money are soon parted. Okay? And that's exactly what's happening. Okay? And so I took the other one, and I put the little rainbow, the pile of gold at the end of the rainbow thing. I was leaving work one day, J-O-B thing, and I was leaving, and it had just rained, and I looked out the side of the car window I was driving. I could have walked over and touched that rainbow. Yeah, it was a double rainbow right there. And I knew enough to know this. I don't need to quit my job. My job is how I feed my family. I'm not telling you to quit your job. I'm not telling you to do anything. The rainbow, the pot of gold you're looking for, is in your job. You just got to find a way to do your job better, or better than the other person, and get a raise, and then use that money that you get to invest in real commodities. Now, you could go in and ask your boss, all of y'all who worked for hourly wage, and say, look, I want to pay in 1964 quarters. Well, most people wouldn't even know what a quarter is. Okay? They don't even carry quarters anymore. And I've seen quarters on the ground in the parking lot at like grocery stores, different places and whatnot. People just walk on by. They don't even bend over to pick them up because there's no value. But if I saw a quarter, I would probably pick it up. I'm just that kind of guy, because I put it in an interest-bearing account at 4%. Even if it's worthless, at least earning that. And yes, that's part of the Babylonian system, the banking system of interest and debt and so forth. But what are you going to do? You know, I mean, it's the system we're in. So I let that earn a little interest and I buy some silver. Okay, so whatever, I'll replace it. But the thing is compounding interest. If you could actually endure it and just put your money in a high interest account and let it just compound at 4% for 20 or 30 years, you'd probably do pretty well. Most people can't do that. They gotta go get the money out and use it for something. So, but don't quit your job. But if your boss were to pay you in silver, would you feel like you actually had something? Yeah. If he's paying you in just regular coinage, you're not feeling so confident that you actually have something. And so you have a ministry. You are a child of God. It is your responsibility to help people break the chains of slavery associated with debt. I have attempted to do that today. And the reason why I attempted to do that is winter is coming. Winter is coming. This is a picture of the creek on my
I was like,
land.
is that our creek?
That's our creek. That's the creek on our property in the dead of winter after a snowstorm. And there's nothing there. The trees are bare. I mean, there might be a fish or two down in the water somewhere. No ducks, no geese, no deer, no butterflies. It's a season of silence. And you want to talk about silence. I went down there and I took this picture, and it's like it's Babbling Creek and silence. So that's where you're headed. And so the thing is what you want to do is think about that and where you are and what your financial situation is, and you want to take action in spring. You don't want to wait till winter. Winter is too late. If you wait till winter, you're going to be dependent upon people who are in spring, and then you're going to be dependent upon what they determine needs to be done for you. Anyway, so if you like this and you think it's been a benefit, I appreciate your time today. Wow, it's a long one. I think it's worth it. I hope that you got something out of it. And hey, I could do probably 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 more of these with the stuff that I've learned through time. But I just wanted to capture the high spots and just let you know that we love you and God loves you. Primarily, God loves you. We love you. We care about you. Or else we wouldn't take the time to even waste our time to even open our mouths to even talk to you, to share this with you. And like I say, if you find it to be a benefit, then we appreciate it. So that's the end of that.
You want me to do the screen?
Yeah, you do the screen.
Like, subscribe. Oh, that was easy.
That was easy.
Like, subscribe, and follow.
Technology. We love it.
Be on the lookout for Choices 3.
Choices 3 is coming up. It's going to be dealing with physical aspects of health. So we've talked about spiritual with reaping what you sow in your Mama Job, and now we've talked about financial. So next we're going to talk physical. So
it'll be good stuff.
Hopefully this is going to be a hard act to follow. So hopefully it'll be good.
See you next time. Like, subscribe, and share.
Thank you.